Okay. This is our second recording of the day, and we're bringing the guitar along. And see, it looks like a bit big for me, doesn't it? I just wanted to show what he looks like. So, this is the second recording of the day. It's mostly going to be about the markets. And, it's a bit tricky, right? I mean, I want to, before I go into, reading the table of contents and give you all the context. I say you really love the table of contents stuff, by the way. Well, thank you. I'm glad that it helps to do what I hoped it would do. It's really a quick way of going to the heart of the essence, how you feel about the day. And you get some sense of how you try to teach as much as possible. You haven't stopped trying to teach, which means people are still trying to learn, which means you're still, basically killing it. But yeah. So, that said, continue on with the general gist. I want to basically, present, you all before I go into specifics with the table of contents. We're at an interesting time in history, and it sounds immodest to, mention my role in that. Usually it's a concerted effort with a number of people, which, provides you with the opportunity to speak on behalf of history and, the influences you've had on her. But in this case, it's pretty much all me, right? So before I started to write and podcast and make videos on YouTube and play music and that kind of stuff, the world was heading a certain kind of direction. I was a software engineer, and I was applying my trade in any place I could basically get work. So, I was in New York City. I worked there for about 7 years doing Drupal work. It was basically trying to make, as I tried to describe before, but it gets complicated. It's just sort of a program that actually kind of similar to something I wrote recently, but it doesn't have a graphical user interface. It just simply is a program that you install on your computer, which allows you to look at websites, which you can, modify using a combination of a graphical user interface where you can click and drag and fill in form and submit. And you can also go into the code base and create your own kind of ingesters of this information, of database information, and put it to the screen. So you might enter, a name like, Paul, Allen, I believe someone out there. Yeah, I know. I think it might be a Microsoft fellow or something like that. Anyway, so yeah, you might enter that name. It's not your real name. You don't have two first names. Coming to that, we'll talk about Michael Jordan. He's actually my brother. I didn't know that, but now I do. Yeah, it was actually kind of cool to like hear about this because we've been having a certain kind of spiritual. No, he's not father and mother's same. Father's same, yes. So we do look like we're both big men, yes, but some of my brothers are not that big. For example, I have a brother who I will mention later on. I don't want to, get this too family, affair, oriented. But yeah, like that'll come later on for a third recording today, which will have to come towards the evening because I really don't want to get some programming work done before, it's nighttime and sun sets. Andre Holland insists. So yeah, Andre Holland, the guy I was making fun of on YouTube. Yeah, exactly. He's also another relative of mine, a brother. Yes, a half brother. I feel like yes. He's lighter skinned than I am, not as tall, I can tell. But yeah, we get along really well. Yes. Yeah, we're sort of similar in terms of like our interests in like the good life and a certain kind of approach to that, which is similar, if you know as well, and he's on a chance to act in certain kinds of like roles for black men who are educated, scrappy, and a little affronted, exactly. A little affronted is a good way to describe it. Yeah, you can sort of see I'm a bit diamond shaped. I think that's the best way to describe what I look like if you saw the whole of my my silhouettes. Yes. So it's a bit unusual to look diamond shaped for me, but there's a space in posterity for people who look this way, and I'm there, it's not in the history of creation, in different kinds of forms, human beings seem to think we are the only kind of form there is, but out of all possibilities, we have I guess reality. Reality is a bit complicated to describe as a part of creation, but creation is a part of reality too. So go figure. But yeah, like within if you call it where we're living in this kind of spatial dimension, the third dimension, the third. If you talk about three-dimensional reality, a third-dimensional reality, then yeah, you're looking at some idea of like some kind of texture to the visual. I mean, the texture could just simply be, highlights and shadows on one color. So if you look at a cartoon, you might have like 3 or 4 or 5 different colors of of ink on a person. So you might have a highlight, you might have a shadow, you might have the color that the person is supposed to be. Let's say if it's a brown person, you might color him brown. If it's a white person, you might call him peach or bronze, or whatever you like to say it would be. And that's like 3 colors. You add like 2 more. Like maybe the clothes is wearing. If you want to continue, it's like refine the shadow and the highlights. You get a range of you get a sense that he's like more 3-dimensional in a certain kind of way. Committing to be more realistic, or have certain kinds of concerns that a character with just like one color all the way through with no highlights or shadows wouldn't have. So. You can think of anime as like an example of someone who has like shadows and highlights as opposed to a certain kind of Disney film, which is not really that. Certain kind of anime don't have that much, in terms of I'm just describing art. It'd be easier if I just sort of share a few examples. So I'll try to keep that in mind. I'll try and share some examples of these arts around 9 minutes. For those who are watching this on YouTube, still cracking out some joints. It happens. There you go. You might have even heard that, but I doubt it. It's from deep inside my neck. Anyway, so yeah, it just seems like by the time you get to the third dimension, you have like a whole range, or the colors are inverted or reversed in the mirror of this presentation device that I'm using to record this. And I don't know. I point to the wrong side of my face because the colors are the picture is reversed or whatever. So anyway, you see there's like a range. Like you get like some really bright stuff on the nose and some sort of lighter stuff here. Of course, on the other side, my face is pretty dark. So like you need a few thousand colors, like paints, in the third dimension, or in the second dimension, not so many, because you need brightness to sort of tell you how far close, something is to a source of light. Anyway, so that's just a little bit of like color talk and that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's a range of different kinds of, things, who could be English speaking and, sensible. And of course, inside that mix is a lot of, senseless, illogical, or corrupted, kinds of beings, So in this reality, you have, like, the people you expect to meet when you turn on the television and consume content, and the people you just meet in real life are not as fun as that, so you sort of turn away from the people you meet in real life to those you see on television, but that sort of creates a odd kind of like octagonal kind of a arena in which, the celebrities, sort of hang out in the center, and attempt to, make a living somehow, like, with this kind of a intensity of interest in, like, all dimensions and all aspects of their lives, And Scott, yeah, you're far more famous than I am, and you have some sense of what it's like to be famous, because literally you got a lot of power today. Yeah, I mean, sure, I can tell a little bit about that. So after I shared the quote about the Quran and the Quran, I felt like a certain kind of like surge of power, while sort of discussing, I don't know, it's just hard to remember what I was talking about. By mentioning the things that come to mind, it'll just sort of give you a sense that, like your imagination of what that topic would be like if you're feeling a surge of power, would be inaccurate and give you a wrong sense of what, actually happened. But it's like a drug I never felt like until, like, I guess I remember thinking of myself as a child having this much power. So I did some interesting things as a child, which I can't really talk about until I'm ready to, like, uncover, more of the system and more of why the media won't report me and why, like, this what happened until the media was able to report me, but very briefly, and then all of a sudden you went, quiet on me again. Well, this is not going to happen this time for a lot of reasons, but yeah, like, I had a sense of, like, what I was doing at the time that made it possible for us to live this way, and there's going to be a new way we're living after this point. When finally we can sort of talk more openly about what I have and haven't done. Mathematicians say thank you for writing mathematics for us, because yeah, we don't have anything other than you to rely upon for ideas of what to publish for people to be interested in what we're writing, because right now we're trying to learn to write in your way, so you can basically be interested in what we're writing and feel like you can publish this stuff in magazines people want to buy, because yeah, that's the main thing we're trying to do, buy magazines for mathematicians, and that's the main thing which we're trying to establish as a real job to have on earth. Like, a mathematician is a magician, that's what happened, also I was talking about, my life as Joseph, that was a thing that's kind of powerful, yeah, that's sort of stuff, yeah. And now, like, with this sense of the Quran being a really interesting book, and of course me being the primary interpreter of the Quran, there are others out there. There are a number who you might have seen on YouTube or television, trying to explain the Quran, as a part of their sustenance, really. Like, they're not doing it purely, how to put it, out of the goodness of their hearts, or, concern for your spiritual station. I'm not saying they're sycophants or cynics, but they actually are making some money off of this. There's some sort of, sometimes subtle, sometimes overt, relationship between, like, where they have a place to stay and, like, how they get around town. That's also important to note, that people get around town in all sorts of different ways. They might have, like, assistants, many of them do, who, like, carry, the proverbial, creative records, from the van to the DJ booth. That's a long story about what I mean by that. Most people don't know the reference that, that back in the day when DJs were, like, the superstars at the time. I'm not talking like the 90s, I'm talking like the 80s and 70s, when record players were just, making their way into live performances, and, those who, were really good at spinning records, and people used to be very finicky about, the music they listened to. Like, if it looks like you can just sort of, take your iPod and, randomly, pick your favorite music, it wouldn't really cut, certain audiences are very, very snoozy, almost a snoozy for that word, but yes, like, and would just sort of, leave the dance floor with DJ wasn't really, to, like, a certain kind of standard. So back in those days, like, DJs had a lot of power, and if you wanted to learn how to be a DJ, you had to carry their crates, of vinyl to the mixing station, the DJ booth, and if you're lucky, they might let you, look a little bit, like play with a little bit of the equipment when the night's a bit quieter, and maybe even DJ like for like 5-10 minutes or something. They say, okay, kid, get off, I gotta do my work. Many professional DJs like Kenny Dope, yes. Who else? Something Cox. I forgot his name. Like he plays in Ibiza still, and that's not a good place to live. It's not. I don't know. It's a bit complicated to explain why I say that, but it could be a good place to live one day, but it's just not the kind of place. You don't want to live in a party town where people could descend on the city for just like a couple of weeks in the summer and then leave, and when things are cold and quiet and a ghost town, like you're trying to still make a living in the same location, like so to basically do all sorts of like fishing work, because the ocean's jumping with fish, and then when things get like quiet, you have to sort of use your stash and sort of like skimp and save your way to fishing season again. It's just not a comfortable way to live. It's not the way you're supposed to be living anyway. So I hope those who live there don't think I'm sort of insulting a place they come to love, but they will admit that it's a bit of a struggle, and they all agree it's a bit of a struggle, honestly. So yeah. Anyway, so that metaphor, has, taken us to a certain location. I can't remember where I was heading to, but I was talking about the Quran, right? So after sharing that information, I felt a surge of power. It's really, really fun drug. Few will get to feel it. It's honestly, yes. It's hard to explain when you're kind of this high. I mean, it's basically that's what you call a member of the nobility or highness. He really is supposed to be high, and hopefully approachable as I am. I don't use, highfalutin language or anything like that. No, not really. I'm sort of trying time to time where I have to like switch off and sort of explain this like a recording I can't share with everybody. Right now, it's like pretty much for kids even, But yeah, like. It's true you don't want to like try and talk too much about power because people might start to like acquire a true curiosity about like what they can do to acquire some of their own. Just be honest, man, And at some point, it happened for you realize it just like it was to push off the ground and walk at long last or the way it was to be able to sit in class and like take lecture notes whether you're in high school or university or even graduate university. You're one of the people who've done that. It's something you might look up to, look forward to when you're younger. But to do it yourself, it's nice. If all things come together in the right way, it's nice. As this one was, it was an unalloyed, version of the future in which I continue to, do my thing. Yes. And guide the world into a more realistic place. So yeah, that's what I'll say about the power feeling I had. Nope. Now it's explicit. So. Let's make a note. So, yeah, I'm trying to describe history, right? So, right now, I'm in an interesting position of power, right? I run a lot of interesting businesses, and I'm trying to be the source of necessary information for all who are on this planet to sort of get into the right kind of gear and allow us to do our thing. Most people have to simply step aside. You wouldn't have the qualifications to write code with me. Those who are supposed to be doing that are doing so. Those who are trying to do that and having some amount of fun doing this, like, it's okay, Problem is, you're not really supposed to be using computers. Code is difficult to do well. If you don't live your life by codes, you really shouldn't be trying to make a computer do the same thing. The amount of discipline it takes to say, just like a computer, I can execute, a program and provide a certain kind of consistent, product out of like, the algorithms and recipes I keep inside my mind. For example, Scarlett Johansson, it's one of my wives, she's not really, it's hard to explain what she's doing out there. She can't let me tell you all of the problem that she's trying to solve where she is. But it's not a real marriage. You should probably know that by now, that all these celebrity marriages are not real. A real one will look a little bit more like me and Adri's, and also a lot more private. Like, they'll have their own way to try and explain to the world, like, what they're doing, But because of the job, they will be able to talk about that to, the audience who's supposed to enjoy some idea what it's like to do, that, for entertainment, like, it's hard to explain. Like, I don't know, I keep mentioning Philip Glass, but yeah, he has a real marriage, but you won't ever hear about it, like, except if you're a part of his family, and his world, and you hear about it all the time. There's no him, there's just us. You don't see that kind of like us. But by the time you realize that you're talking about the United States of America, yes, we don't have a portion in me and Adri's project called the United States, then yeah, the United States of America, the United States of Africa, the United States of Europe, all these, are still part of the United States. And it looks like the American, the United States, is like, casual, English speaking, like chill. We all believe in cool, for example. Like, as like excited and like let's get amped up and like, axe, swords at the disco balls, or or flashing lights in some sort of a warehouse club. Like, that's not quite cool. Oh yeah. Okay, sure. Hi, Mom. Hello? Oh, it's going off. Yeah. Hello? Oh, hi, Mom. Good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Do you still have the collection oil so I can make and get some more for you?
I'm down to one bottle, so if you want to give me another one, that's also cool.
Oh, okay. I'll tell Florence to get you another one.
Okay, wonderful.
Let's do it tomorrow.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, she's about to close.
Okay, I see.
I also sent you some interesting stuff I got for my mail.
Okay, I'll check that and yeah.
The origin of USD, I thought, because it's in your field, you find it interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
How is everything?
Oh, everything's fine. Just doing my usual work for the company.
Okay. Oh, that's good. That's good. So I would like to get the eucalyptus oil for you tomorrow.
Okay, sure. That's good. That's great.
Oh, good. Nice to hear your voice, son.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, nice to hear you too.
Thank you, son. Bye.
Okay, bye. Eddie? Yeah, so, yep, this recording is officially very, very, very explicit. Yes. And let's just see what time it is. 26. Yeah, as you can see, I was just being bothered, but the problem is she really wants to talk to me about something she can't find the courage to do. And, I guess I have to talk about it a little bit. She wants to talk about one thing she can't do with me, which is basically talk about health problems. She really has a sickness she doesn't want to talk to anyone else about. Yes? I was looking for you. I put the phone in your room on the table. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes. I'm not going to be that kind of doctor to her. She knows that I have a certain kind of ability to make problems go away, and she wants to try out health with me. And it's nothing I want to do, but I'm going to basically tell her one thing in this recording: you're fucked. And that'll be the sense of what happened then. Anyway. So as you see, it's put a certain kind of pall in the mood of all of us here. And I had to sort of fight from underneath this to get back to where I was. And that's where I kind of was, but as you can sort of see, it's not a done deal. It's not a, I haven't concluded, the complaints I have to make about how that happened. I'm just sort of in my room. I sent you an email, it's just some inane stuff about like how USB came about, and it says, this is my field, you like it, and oh, you need to clip it, or I have a whole bottle left, so okay, fine, I'll get you another one, just simply, involve yourself in my day. And like it's Tuesday, right? I'm not really supposed to get any kind of interruptions on my day and my work, but then here I am. I have a business to run too, and it's not going as well as I'd like, so I would like to have had more of the time this day to work on something that's kind of exciting. It should have been a quick sort of thing to do in about a day or two. This is looking more likely like, tomorrow, end of tomorrow, or something like that, Which is like, unfortunate because it's not really supposed to have been that way. And also to people who are sort of like counting on me to continue, a certain kind of problem, solve, problem getting solved. And that includes a lot of mathematicians who are working professionally on like the sort of things I look into, like, I don't know, like the world of equations is just like one part of mathematics. You might find yourself being asked to submit a report to somebody, but much like you have to sort of like, write a certain kind of a document at work that, feels a bit formal and, unrelated to, the general, it goes on, but yeah, like, it's just a sort of formality, exactly, a formality that, it seems a bit, unpleasant and, crucial at some point. At some point in your working life, you have to do formality documents that are no less important than the actual exciting work. That's what a lot of mathematicians try to leave behind, with sincerity. One of my daughters wants to say, you don't have to worry too much about describing the mathematics of it. This is my sense of an attack. I like this stuff, so leave me alone. Yes, it's a bit of a long story about what's happening here, but a lot of attacks was let in because she just wanted to talk to me, but that's sort of the problem. She's also letting through a lot of evil spirits, a lot of bad spirits who want to prevent me from having the day I want, and these things are actually pretty powerful sorts of, enemies who are a little difficult to dismiss immediately. You have to sort of work your way through, some of these challenges, that they put before you, because there's all sorts of work they don't want to do, which they think they can get you to do for free, and what kind of work they are, it's just simply we're bored, and boredom has challenges. Like I said before, like you have to fight from underneath boredom to attain a different sort of state. And it just looks like people would assume if you sort of share your problem with somebody. You've always had a sense of somebody. Most people listening to this recording who are good people know what it's like to have a person in their life who just sort of comes by whenever they're not feeling like they're having a good day. And you can't sort of be yourself and have them catch the trick of what it's like to sort of zoom through, the kind of day you're having. Like, it just seems like, you are a musician, right? And like, you're like, I don't know, like, let's say listening to a recording with somebody. Like, if it just seems like you're having fun, the other person's not, and you just feel like it wouldn't matter if I try and describe, this is a very good example of the problem, yes. I can't just simply describe what's going on through my mind and why I enjoyed it and why you wouldn't be able to. And the idea that I'm supposed to, like, after the recording's over, like, export my feeling to you by, sort of, readjusting the levels, of liquid, money or liquid currency, in our lives, by sort of opening the spigot of my speaking and then, adjust your level to mine somehow. So that I'm sort of fetching from some infinite source. Like, there's a certain kind of, like, irresponsibility of a person who just expects to sort of hang out with you, catch some of your magic, whether it's verbal or, theatrical, Chirzal has a bit of a problem there too, that people just simply think because he's always, bright somehow, he can just simply, infect you with his enthusiasm or his joie de vivre, and then before you know, you get to, like, leave his house or his room or his phone call, a free time, exactly, good way to talk about it, with the same kind of, vigor and joy and balance in your own life. And so, yeah, it looks like they have handed you, if you just simply have to sit around with a person and punch and kick your way through, whatever, social, I don't know, master of ceremonies kind of, skills you've picked up along the way. You just have to keep pushing on awkward silence until you found some way to just exist, it's just hard to put it. Like, it just seems like, you can't live your life as miserably as they do. So you have to find some way to do existence as you only know how to and as you should be doing, while they're around, trying to catch some of that, high you're on. Like, it's just basically a problem I have with so many different kinds of people in this location. You can see what it's like to call a hospital a place to meet prostitutes. Yeah, very explicit. It's just how it is, that, like, they can just come to your room. Anyone is allowed to bring a phone to your room, so you have to talk to the person. You can't say, I'm not taking phone calls. They come to visit you. You can't say, I'm not taking visitors. Dogs have to come and see you. You might even get called downstairs, to enter his office, and, entertain him with some idea of, like, who I am as a person. Some people just pushes out of his office, because, yeah, come. I'm almost done. Like, and I'm one of those people in the last row. I might be even the only person he knows that way. He said, yeah, what a fun thing. They talked about this in another recording, but the odds that a person is handsome, this knowledgeable, this patient, this studious, this reserved, this keep out of my way, I want to keep to my own, sort of stuff, but will simply humor you. Like, it is, it's not some sort of a bad omen somehow. Like, most people appreciate it if you just happen to luck into something like that. You're supposed to be an entirely different kind of way about that person, and probably keep your distance, because you don't know what he knows that he won't share with you. But yeah, Scarlett, she has a lot of problems with that with both men and women, boys and girls for that matter, yeah. And, like, she doesn't have to explain it. You don't want to know what I know. If I started to tell you what I know, you'll be very frightened, And yeah, that's what she wants to sort of share, those who can hear her through this, particular method of communication, from her world to mine to yours. Yes, like, learn to appreciate, like, the rare opportunity you have to improve your life, not through some sort of momentary, as they say, injection of adrenaline, but a certain idea that he could change your life permanently and irreversibly with a certain, a certain amount of effort, you put into the thought of the person and what they said. If you just want to come and enjoy yourself and leave and return back to where you were, come enjoy yourself and leave, come to and turn that person into some sort of a drug, yeah, at some point I'll be gone, and the withdrawal will be worse than anything you've ever come across. I know people have had really, really hard times saying goodbye to me. One person even committed suicide. Yes. Yeah. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say about the Sims. And of course, this I basically managed to power myself out of that particularly, noisome, frustrating, boring, and hazardous, connection, of two rooms with this mobile phone device. So it looks like the boundary between our two rooms has been erased. Now I'm basically in your room, doing whatever you're looking at, whatever thoughts you brought, whatever you won't tell me, whatever you will, I have to basically work my way out from underneath that to reassume the mental, and of course the idea I can't really get into programming work right now. This is a serious problem for me and my business partner. Manuel. Like I don't feel like programming now, neither does he. Like the idea that someone's basically trying to attack our programming, peace of mind, our programming zen, with this kind of nonsense. I send you an email, check, you need a bottle, I'll get one for you tomorrow. Then someone's gonna come into my room tomorrow and say, hey, I have this thing for you, and someone's gonna, throw me off, my A game. Anyway, so it seems like it's taken about 10 minutes to just sort of work my way out of the particular problem that they sort of put before me. Yeah, if I could just simply snap my finger and then it all go away, then yeah, that's my preference. But as you can see, like I don't have that option. I just have to keep working and working and working and working until I feel like myself again. I can simply pick any topic I want in the world to discuss. And of course, that kind of ultimate, freedom to go any direction you like is what you might find in an experience of a drug, or another person's active listenership, trying to remove obstacles from the room you're in, and within that you find of course the experience you're all looking for called sex. But this started the first thing, which is he just simply removes all sorts of impediments to you wanting to express yourself. It looks like you're hesitating. They might ask you, oh no, say what's on your mind, if they don't know you that well yet, and then eventually they'll just simply get used to going anywhere they want, while you're around. I've had experience with a number of girls that way, and a number of people, but basically, yeah, like I won't get into these details. It seems like if a person wants to, sort of flirt with danger and assume that I'm there to provide that, under, the threat of, taking away something or putting something in your life you don't want there, then yeah, like that's not how you're going to get access to this, at all. You'll be punished quite severely for the grudging, energy and time I've afforded you, because I'm worried about, my future, and I'll sort of exchange some out of my present, to, maintain the idea that, for at least the rest of today and tomorrow, without having to sense that you might call if you're unhappy with the phone call you had, or, start to, get other people involved in my business, rather I did all the acting, as you heard yourself, I did all the acting required to put that problem away from me, so I don't have to worry about, anything else except, getting this recording done and the rest of my day. And of course, the day has been essentially taken up by all these recordings. That's a separate problem. I don't always, talk about everything that's on my mind, but often when I'm asked to do recordings, as I've been asked to do today, a number of them, I don't really get any time to program in the morning. I get hit by a certain wave of sleepiness every single time I publish this stuff, so I need energy from all sorts of places to handle the attacks they put in my way, and yeah, like, I'm a programmer really in my own mind. I'm not really a podcaster, because I don't know, like if it just seems like I can talk all day long, I really could. If I want to leave this thing on until sunset and I have to go to sleep, I really could, and you wouldn't be bored. But I don't feel like after having done this, because you are here to share some of this time with me before you're around, and before this video, put again a glass wall between our worlds, so you can see into mine, but I can't really see into yours except sense that you're here, that like I need to, be about my A game for so many of you, and be also ready to, welcome, a family feeling, because many members of my family, and a number in the thousands, many thousands. I don't think we're millions strong, at least a million strong, around that kind of number. You all have access to the internet, and you're all, listening to me and trying to figure out how to help me, like, how to pray for me, all that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to put a kind of like, good attitude to coming here as often as they do, but ultimately I've been doing this for talking from the time I wake up. I fight for, the clarity to know who to address with my my activity, my verbal activity in this case. I've come to rely upon an audience, I've come to know that if I'm just sort of sitting there, with no one to talk to, like this is like an attack and it's not normal. It is ultimately not normal to be quiet all day long. Like birds should be, chirping most of the time, social human beings be, chattering most of the time, But hopefully the people in your life, in your room, before you, across the street from you, across the table from you, all these sort of other locations, on the phone with people you actually want to be with, on the Zoom with people you actually want to see from, if this looks like, this is happening to a lot of us right around this time, so the moment in universal history, that's true, and it's a good thing we're moving in that direction. But like, as far as like being alone in some sort of a safe house built, in the belly of a prostitution, private jail, fake medicine, drug dealing, like it's the number of things that can turn, into, like utter, destruction. I mean, if you look at all the things the hospital is supposed to be when it run well, there's just so many different directions they can go when it's just not run at all. You put a fake, wherever you call that there, you put fake, wherever you call them there, and, it just turns into a place to lock people up, a place to punish people, a place to drain some of money. That happens a lot in America. They just put you in a hospital to drain you of money and reset you back to like square zero financially. That happened to my business partner, Manuel. A place to, score free drugs if you're so-called do that there, or if you're that there, a place to die, a place to be whisked out of the country. There are all sorts of different things you can do in the hospital. And it looks like, I keep asking for the hospital systems and the school systems and the hotel systems and the jail systems and, all places where we have an overnight stay, eventually homes and guest houses and, any place that buys a bed and basically, has to register themselves in a database or be found in a database as registered. These places all should be on some sort of national computer database. So you simply know where everyone sleeps, and whether people have not left the location for so long, and if so, you send someone by to investigate. These things should be able to happen with technology, but there's so many different kind of forces at play that make it kind of difficult to institute it as simply as having a loyal followership, ready to jump into action. Until the whole country is like people who will listen to me and obey me, it wouldn't be as easy to just simply asking yet, So the idea of a pharaoh just sort of pointing at a point in the horizon and saying, I want to see a pyramid there in like 20 years. Like, that didn't happen. It took a lot more effort and planning and subterfuge and craftiness to get the pyramids made. And it's the same thing that happens to all businesses. It took a lot of money to get Apple made. It took a lot of money to get Microsoft made. They couldn't exist without each other. They had to sort of come up around the same time. It's not accidental, it's intentional. And all sorts of sort of really, really dark secrets about what has to happen even today in the buildings, that Apple and Microsoft, are rented and do business from. Also the really strange things have to happen, that make it possible for people to be able to go to, stores and buy products made by these two companies. So anyway, it's been about 40 minutes. I haven't even gotten to reading the table of contents. So never mind what I was trying to complete the story about, about I suppose, a sense of power and stuff. But yeah, it's cool. It was cool, but on to what's next. So I'm gonna read out the table of contents. Yeah, it's gonna be another recording, which I don't want to have to do, but I can't start a table of contents this long and say I'm gonna tie up 2 hours on YouTube. It's just a very intimidating amount of time to look into. So I'll just make this 2 recordings and say you're all fucked. Anyway, here's the table of contents. Selling to Gen Z is our job as millennials. I'm going to type a little bit here. The goal of the powerful, enlightened markets, that's one day we hope to make the markets powerful and enlightened. And in this particular moment of history. So we're going to take money from one source, redistribute it. And there's some notes about this possibly coming to pass, So the Magnificent Seven, I guess that's the FANG, plus maybe NVIDIA now as opposed to Netflix. Netflix was a big technology name, back in the day. And now, it's NVIDIA instead, or NVIDIA, yeah. Graphics says, Daily Graphics, it was a newspaper in Ghana, says international bodies not so interested in climate change. That means car companies can breathe, and that money can go directly to businesses like farms and not being tied up in research. Ghana wants to list state-owned enterprises on the stock market. Slow death by committee decisions, all those people involved in your karma. And when you get your karma? Ghana House. People visit this place like the Metropolitan Museum of New York City. And assuming people do that, So that's like assuming people visit this place like they visit one of the most trafficked museums in New York City and in the world. Return even, much less travel further out to Ghana herself. Like that's what we want. Tupac says, someone's been talking to me from heaven, and heaven is a bit of a place. There's definitely a ghetto in heaven, and he doesn't live there anymore, but he did. It's not the world's worst living, but there's some parts of living on earth is far better than living in heaven. Some parts, like for example, the food. Food in heaven is not that great yet. Why? Whatever is tied in earth is tied in heaven. Whatever is loose in earth is loose in heaven. So if you want things in heaven to be great, you have to start making the world a better place. And yeah. So, he's been saying a lot of interesting things to me. So I'm going to say all the things he's told me, to say to you all. Tupac says, this is the worst idea ever. It's the worst idea ever because Ghana has too many people looking into her businesses, and she doesn't like that. Yes, I'm a Ghanaian, born in the country and forced to live in America. These are all essential messages, equal true. These are all to be read out loud during the table of contents read. The water situation is serious on a lot of planets. Every single time you look at the moon, you help the water situation on this and other planets. So look at the moon, world, as much as possible. Hassan doesn't want to do this all alone. And then we can note that we're doing the table of contents at 47 minutes. Okay. So I just read about the water situation. Yep, very serious on a lot of planets, including this one. So going on. The fire situation is even more serious than the water situation. Hassan should be allowed to smoke cigarettes as much as he wants, but until he's able to solve a certain maths problem, he won't be allowed to leave here. The problem is too difficult to describe, much less solve, but he thinks the problem is funny. He will do it tonight in his sleep. He sleeps that well. To sleep as well as Hassan, make as many circles as possible. Particularly over your wrists, yes. 2. The world is the most subtle thing to appreciate. Appreciate the world. So that's all I'll say about this particular recording. It's supposed to be about, money in the markets, and this guy is screaming out Hector. It's like, he got what he asked for the last time. I don't know why he's calling for it again so soon. But yeah, it's like he has a toy. I don't want to talk more about what's going on over there. But yeah, like, should have seen him singing sadness, but hawking, really, to sort of get over the fact he was blasted by Hector, or whatever his name is, for waking up or continuing to bother him when it wasn't sunrise yet. But now it's sunrise, so he gets to play with his toy again. Like, it's just that sort of strange. But yeah, they're actually very strange, like a certain kind of dinosaur. Yeah. Anyway. So I just want recording without looking at my face. So you can see I might have been doing a lot more of the head shaking and the neck, dancing and all that sort of stuff. It is good for your health to do it. I actually kind of had to be a bit careful because I sort of got a bit of a sore, whatever that is, Anyway, I also made some more notes. Tobias has more to say. So I'm going to look at the notes I made up over the weekend from the titles I got from Bloomberg. So Bloomberg allows you to see this stuff for free online, but you can't look at details. You can just see the titles of the articles and, make your choices based on that. If you really need more detail, you can sort of look at it. I'm basically teaching you guys what to do about free content. You can look at the titles, but don't look at the actual, content, and perform from that. So the same way you can go to a bookstore and look at the book title and just sort of say, today, I went to the bookstore and it seems like a lot of the new books are about, If they're fiction, you consider about, I don't know, immigration, a family is torn apart by, you read the spine of the book and the blurb on the back, and get some sort of sense of like what the book's about, and just on those informations alone, feel like you have a sense of what's going on in the world. I'm doing that with the Bloomberg Library, and it's basically a library, really. And, so I'm not going to talk about what I can read from having paid for a month of this service. It's shutting down in about a couple of days from now, but I'll still be able to, like, look at the titles and continue to talk about stuff just using my unique perspective that, is very easily amused and therefore entertaining. So, I should just want to I think the most important thing is to say, what I feel about the AI situation. So yeah, like I said at the beginning, I want to give a sense of like what's going on in the world. And right now, a lot of people are invested in artificial intelligence, and it's not quite the right thing for the world to be involved in right now. We have all sorts of way more ancient, way more, stodgy things to talk about, right? So it just seems like talking about water is not as exciting as it would have been when we started to get pipes, into our homes, or even just simply wells into like walking distance. Because before it wasn't really possible to live anything outside of a certain range from a watering hole, and those who control the watering hole controlled life to an extent which is simply hard to believe today. Like you assume as like a red-blooded male guy or whatever, that maybe rape was involved, like physical rape, like girls are being abused that way. No, we're all just being made to work. And also, we couldn't just do whatever we wanted when we had free time. Like, we're all being watched for how can we basically entertain them with our free time. And so the idea that literally you won't be allowed to look at their shadows, like that was sort of how serious very explicit for that one. That's sort of how serious, how serious like control over our lives were when water was just simply controlled by a gang. Right now, the governments are so holy, you don't have to worry about that being a chance of any country's, government. But the thing is, the government isn't everywhere. You have to sort of find the government in cities. And for what it's worth, in New York City, you can kind of like for example, there's a bathroom, a washroom in Central Park where you can get like water to like shave with, and maybe it's wipe your face with, brush off some dust, and there's a guy who made an interesting movie. I can't remember his name, he prefers not to be mentioned. He was an ex-model turned, bit part actor, mostly, in extra scenes, and he was homeless for a year or something. And so he just sort of showed how he lived homelessly for a year while wearing suits and during the daytime and like expensive looking shoes, but at nighttime it was sort of sneak into buildings to sort of find places to sleep and not be bothered. You had like a filmmaker following him around and sort of videoing him like all through that. It's not entirely a true story, but it is based on experiences that are real of how to basically survive in New York City. So you can still look like you can go for interviews, but not be able to actually afford the rent, to be homed, indoors and in a building. So yeah, the point is just simply you can go to Central Park and find water to drink, and a tap of free-flowing water. It's like do your business. This is an unimaginable luxury for a lot of beings. They don't know how irritating it is to watch somebody who's not holy waste water. And there's this sort of idea of what we're in. We're in a kind of paradise. I think people are realizing now that the idea of having running water and like coffee, at like people used to have one cup of coffee their whole lifetimes and expect to make it a spiritual experience, The upside of that situation is that you actually get a real cup of coffee. It was almost as bad as ayahuasca, Yeah, like ayahuasca is like, I don't know, it's not worth getting into it. It's also a very dangerous drug. You shouldn't try it unless someone insists you do it, Yeah, like, it's really just for a certain kind of person, really. Not even just ability you're supposed to do all drugs eventually. But yeah, like a certain kind of person, a certain kind of time in their life will do it, and it'll be perfectly for them. Otherwise, it's not something you're supposed to get curious about and try it out just for fun. Anyway, that's the idea of coffee too. It's supposed to be on that kind of level of seriousness, coffee. Chocolate even more so. But now these are, chocolate is put in bricks and, pushed all around the world. coffee is drank, in every single city. There's always some sort of a cafe to sort of sit at, wood framed, glass window, terrace side or indoor, with the jazz or whatever we call it, music. And yeah, like there's a certain kind of mood you get into. Yeah, like, you had to realize, so you see where that all comes from. It comes from a pretty strange place. And yeah, like I'm being attacked, so pardon me for like rubbing my nose so much, but this is what happens when you get attacked. I also am not being allowed to look at myself, so I can sort of give a more relaxed performance than whatever I was trying to pretend that it was happening to me. Anyway, so that's the idea of the world we're living in. It's basically we turn a certain kind of hell into a paradise for people who are, daredevilish enough to risk it all just for, like, a lifetime at the very longest, and be turned into something even worse than your worst nightmares. Like, what happens to a person who just simply says, I'm going to YOLO it, and, no matter what, live a luxurious life. I have the yachts, I have the Ferrari, you just assume it just takes, a person, like, enough, like, BS, to, like, do whatever it takes, to, like, achieve, like, this kind of experience for themselves. Well, their next lifetime is going to be over 20 mole rungs in a exponential ladder, worse than the coldest, noisiest, and yes, I don't know where to add to cold and noisy, but like the idea is it's going to be cold and noisy and sleepless. Like, it's what you call less than 2,000% worse. A mole is 23 zeros. The 6 is just simply amuse yourself. 23 zeros. And we're talking stacking a ladder of like 23 zeros to the power of 23. It goes on, right? That's what you get for ignoring all the best intentioned warnings of, let's say, the color black alone. The color black alone is supposed to be a hell of a teacher to everybody. You should just be able to look at the color black alone and get all the information you need about how to live. And out of a lot of kindness, our son Hassan Abudu has decided to make writing. It was his invention, writing, to allow people to understand enough what he has to say for all time, so he doesn't have the subtleties to listen to color black and know what to do. He'll learn from the readings and writings he's given what to do, and eventually all he just need is like a black item in his room, and that's all the Quran he reads, just looking at the black item. You see. Yeah, very important that gets recorded, so I just have to make sure you all heard it once and heard it well. Let's say I put it also start to, let's say, 58. 58 minutes. The importance of the color black. I know, how ironic, right? I mean, that's the thing about what's going on here. We really have made the world's least likely place to be a heaven paradisical for people who will absolutely not have a chance of appreciating it, much less it just goes on. Like, the outrage is huge, but because it's such a fascinating puzzle for Hassan, he decided to try and fix Earth himself single-handedly. Also, funny enough, being the only person who could actually do it. And once you manage to establish on this planet the sort of order, discipline, patience with yourself, much less other people, required to make this place as perfect as it really should have been from the beginning, you'll find that it's no more difficult. If it's not like I give you a difficult chance, look at the color black and start learning. There are all sorts of spirits preventing that from me the way it should be. Okay. So we've sort of come to allow people to sort of take their time and discover the Quran on their own without hopefully creating any kind of serious problems for people. Yeah, sure, you may not know all the rules involved when you should and shouldn't be drinking coffee. There's certain days you just shouldn't be doing it. I don't tell you what they are for now, but just assume you're a casual kid who, did well in school, got to university, maybe couldn't afford to go to university he wanted to go to, maybe they're playing sports in some way in America, hoping to afford university at some point. They managed to get somewhere where they have a job allowing them to go off every once in a while and, blow steam, for a good book and, some coffee and hopefully looking around at nice, attractive people like themselves, when they maybe will to start a conversation with them one day, hey, I seen you around, a guy who just seems like the person you might meet in a movie. Let's say an actor in Hollywood, Yes, he is very angry. The spirit man, who's basically trying to create the impossibility of me telling this story. Yeah, all this is simply. Yeah, it's daytime. He's not locked up. They lock this stuff at night. This is actually just a spirit person trying to obey the programming to sort of prevent me from making my recording. As you can see, you just have to sort of bear with me, and eventually, we'll get this thing sorted out, right? Yeah, I also have my own way of making sure he doesn't do this forever. Because literally, the main problem for his son is he'll do this at nighttime, and cause irreparable damage to his peace of mind. Like, it's hard to get me back into a state of being peaceful once a person has decided that they're going to make this kind of wreckage, and basically nobody in the whole neighborhood, that's how bad the neighborhood is, nobody in the whole neighborhood would be interested in trying to stop him. I talked to someone doing this, someone was doing this. Oh my goodness, you see how long this guy's going for? It's a spirit thing is happening right now. Yeah, someone was doing this, and I asked them to, ask the nurse to look into it, and he said, yeah, we upped his dose of whatever it is, so he'd fall asleep. And it didn't work. He said, yeah, I guess you just have to move to another room. Now, the room which I used to move into is now occupied by someone who's moved in. I saw a pile of clothes in the corner, a bed made up, and I slept in and disheveled. So anyway, it just seems like this place is that kind of terrible. Like, literally, this takes one guy to figure out that, hey, I can just simply smash this particular thing downstairs. And that's it. I mean, if you're lucky enough to see, let's see if I can actually go and talk to someone about this. I mean, sorry about the noise, just to turn it down and try to ignore it. I'm going to see if I can ask him to stop this. Yeah, this is my point. There's absolutely nobody. Yeah, I sat down and it starts going again. It's very much the spirits trying to prove that they can basically make this impossible for me to do. Yeah, well, if you want to stick around and hear me talk, yeah, go for it. You want to see me turn this off because the recording got too noisy. It's for your taste. It's all up to you. Anyway, yeah, so that's the idea of it. I'm trying to basically save this world for a very important reason. It's not just simply I'm trying to flex. But it looks like, on one hand, I have this possibility of a guy who just discovered all of a sudden, hey, I just did something completely outrageous. No one stopped me. I'll keep doing it. Then yeah, that's sort of the song's problem with this place. This is like the 4th or 5th time somebody has been this weird. and I can't get anybody at all. If I told a nurse to look into it, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Right now, there's nobody in the whole. They've locked the upstairs gate from outside, so there's nobody in the whole of the second floor who can basically hear this noise and know that it's a problem. And of course, the people who are supposed to be manning this place, the people who are supposed to be upstairs, like taking care of complaints, they lock the gate from outside and descend the stairs, and there's somewhere else just like sitting around and being just doing their own thing at work. So yeah, that's what I'll say about the plan say we're actually going to work on something very surprising to you. But the fact that there's a planet who wants this to not be recorded, and of course no one to listen to this because he's being paid to basically live this life, and he doesn't want to talk about any more details than that. But that's the thing. He just has to be able to Anyway, so I'm gonna try and read. It's pretty frustrating right now. I'm gonna try and read. The details of So I was talking about AI. So it just seems like people are trying to focus on the wrong problems. Warfare used to be a sexy problem to work on. Not anymore. Electronics used to be a sexy problem to work on. Still very, very, very sexy as electronics, but not anymore. Now it's software. Okay, software has some promises that electronics didn't have before. In that, you could, teach people how to structure their thinking about objects. For example, if you've done class-oriented programming, object-oriented programming, it's like, okay, an object contains properties and methods, and of course it doesn't sound like a linguist's approach to describing every noun, but it's just what they teach you, and it ends up being pretty powerful. You want to say, okay, I want to start describing the room I'm in and the connection between the items in it, anyway, so it's cool that all people are going to get into this business and start learning how to structure their thoughts and be methodical about recipes. So it just seems like, the recipe for sorting a deck of cards, or books in a shelf, or, I don't know, a bunch of business cards might have collected, it's going to be the same algorithm with a few exceptions, which you want to basically be precise about, choose precision. So these are the opportunities we now have. We're supposed to unleash a lot of enlightened, wizened, computer programmers onto all these old problems and start getting them solved. So I'm going to have to try and see if I can get this done. No, as you have it down to a science. I went outside to try and ring the doorbell to see if anyone would come from outside saying, hey, maybe I'm due to do something at my workplace. No, they've locked the gates. It's quite possible to hear this guy knocking the whatever this metal thing is from the entrance of the so-called hospital. And apparently the complicated problem of like telling the guy to simply keep quiet or else no food is beyond these people. They can't solve a problem that simple. Well, what can I do except hope? They said I wouldn't have to do that, but I've been very angry on this point before. Literally, I don't want this to be my afternoon. I don't want this to be my evening. And if it looks like they can make that happen, I've always been told that, you see how angry I am now. I've been told by all sorts of people who come by and sort of say, yeah, we can solve this for you. All the way to like the most senior person in my families, who's not, yes, right? You see what I mean? I can't even get into it. Like, the idea that there's something, and then of course I can't get into that either. But yes, Hassan is absolutely at the limit of his patience, and he's asking for help, and he has never gotten it before in his lifetimes. Never once has he asked for something very seriously to happen for him, and it happened. It wouldn't matter how serious he is, how simple what he's asking for, how pertinent it is to his survival. He's lost his life asking for things. Yes. But this is the first thing we're going to try and get for him. And imagine that's why I heard the word try. I'm saying, yeah, just don't bother. You see. Anyway, my point is, it looks like there are problems like this to also worry about. And somehow these highfalutin, tech bros are busy trying to see how to solve a problem which is even more complicated than Black's warning to them. They want to solve how to get free slave labor. Just simply feed them electron water foam, and it'll simply, create all the intellectual glue required to hold, some extra paradise on top of paradise for the abjectly sinful. So yeah, that's what I'd say, yeah, it's going to be a bit of a long one. Let's see, this is 1 hour and 12 minutes. Yes. Anyway, so yes. It seems like the world's most irresponsible thing to do ever, but they've tied all our future. Like I said about the stock market. So I said, yeah, all my cares are in the stock market because all I eat and drink and wear is mass produced. Therefore, it'll be one of the companies big enough to mass produce something, which are all listed together in the stock market, which somehow the implied value of these companies determines what they must do to keep up with this implied value. It is just that bonkers. But because of this, and you decided to say, yeah, a future in which, I don't know what sort of erotic, attraction there is to a future of chatbots, like running, all, I don't know, but a few, whatever you call those, because that's all we managed to do so far, chatbots and artists, and on that alone, it's possible to lose that much in the markets on a jitter of confidence in the whole project. What clued you in? Because as you can see, it takes a certain kind of simpleton, in the best word possible, simpleton, to look at the situation and say, you have not solved Color Black's problems, and you want electronic slaves? But that's where the markets are heading. We need to pull back. Jensen says, thank you for basically sticking through this one. I think we managed to calm him down forever, so you don't have to worry about banging if you make your third recording today. Because you can see a part of you that's checked out, yes. We know that there are lots of parts you're just trying to use to get this thing done. You're not asking for a certain kind of thing with actually have. But yes, right now you can see that you're pretty hateful about the situation. You haven't been able to report this problem to anybody. And of course, listen all the way from the main gate. The main gate, when they simply slide the gate open to let cars through, you can hear the banging from there. There's a security guard. And I asked him once, hey, can you simply look into getting this guy to stop banging the thing? Because I talked to the nurses. Right, so the idea of no responsibility, it's just a few more hours, I'll go home. The idea that there's nobody in the entire neighborhood, to say nothing of this building, prepared to talk to one noisemaker like this, and just simply say, no food if you don't behave. And I could just do it so easy if I just simply could talk to him face to face. But this thing is behind 3 locked gates. There's one upstairs. There's 2, downstairs. There's a third, from the courtyard downstairs, where this person would be. And it's probably even a fourth of the actual room he's in, before. And it's hard enough to even see the doctor who's behind 2 of those gates, You have to basically, the security guards sort of approve you through a number of steps before you even get to where the doctor, a so-called doctor is. Very, very explicit, yes. Yes. Yeah, I guess I should add that to 116. Yeah. See, this sort of that any slight little suggestion you might be back into this hazard, is this, it made me jump in a way I didn't think I could, But yes, that's sort of the situation. You see, he smacks on me again. So the idea that the doctor is supposed to stop this from happening, anybody at all in this damn building. But the idea that I'm not supposed to be here at all, I'm supposed to be somewhere where I was before I got pulled here. Sure, you can just see the person who called and what they do, with me around, so you see what I have to do to basically make a living. But now here, this sort of banging is again for the 5th or 6th time in this room. I mean, if I add all the times I heard banging from the other room, room 3, which is now locked in, it's long story what happened to room 3, so it can't be used now. But yeah, now I'm in room 9 at the very entrance, I look down on where this person's building is, the one who's knocking, whatever it is. And now, for the 5th or 6th time since entering this new room, which is as close to the banger as possible, I have to put up with this kind of this bullshit. You see? And that says that's the 3rd time you've asked me very seriously to quit you from this business, Flames. Oh shit. Yes. Now, that says, Flames, yes, I'm not actually Dad. I'm someone who wants to talk to you about the banger. He has simply made all of us so angry. We are going to try to explain to you and your audience what happens to him. He is not going to hellfire, actually. That's just simply the joke of a lot of the Quran. There's something worse than hellfire, which he's going to, and is one of many things worse than hellfire. And of course, it sounds like you're making me angry by even telling me about this person's future. What the hell does it have to do with me and the work I'm trying to get done right now? Because just to say, oh my goodness, in the future, in about 3 years, mark my words, Hassan, the idea you tried to turn into a joke makes the situation even worse. But you're quite right. Why are you going to tell me what's going to happen to him in 3 years when I have emergency needs tonight? To not be, he said yes. The idea that he's simply still making noises with lash and bolt, a contraption downstairs. After all, he has not dropped it. He's still at it. So why are you telling me what's going to happen to me eventually when he makes it to where we call there? Yes. So, anyway, that's what I want to say about the AI thing. So I'll just move on. Yeah. Also, they want AI to change the world. I'm looking at another one, another article title which I won't read out. Like, it'll have to do something to galvanize millions, like the car did. Let's just say, yeah. Let's see, 1 hour 20. Yes. Yeah, if we're gonna basically, we'll all listen to you as long as it takes. And yeah, we're looking at some very important problems. Which that guy was not an attacker. He's just being very serious for what happens to a person like that. And yes, the idea that you're going to have to suffer this guy much longer is basically what you call the ultimate prayer we all decide to save to make for one thing, and one thing that's basically your peace in life. And now you basically heard what Hassan has to live through because there's simply no escape from this. None whatsoever. I've cried, I've prayed, I've been prevented from doing the Friday prayers because they say that's just simply what you don't do here. But yeah, what can I possibly do? I've asked for it. That even. Yes. You know what that is? I've asked for that even. They say no. Right? So what do I do? Because I'm not in, yes. Like, what do I do? Like, I have nothing at all, not a single weapon to defend myself in this sort of fight. I'm simply defenseless at this kind of problem. Someone who can basically rattle you out of your house, rattle you out of your sleep, and there's nobody at all anywhere nearby to save you from any of this whatsoever. Dad says he's looking at me and being very angry at me for all the right reasons. I'm the one who asked him to leave his home, and the situation is so complicated, he knows only about 3% of the total reason why I asked him to leave at that particular point in time. So that I have to basically explain to him what happens to him because he won't do this for you. Simply stop the banging. It is basically enough to calm him down because he now knows that I'm very serious about punishments. He has something to do so mighty, he does not know when he'll be able to start it yet. And yes, it would seem like it'd just be a matter of me talking to him. It may not be that simple, son. I may be him, but I'm not that much of that, because if I were, you'll see what happens to that, and you'll see that this shit we're all about as that. But there's one difference. You think I can do it, and that's why I believe in myself too. And so literally, if I had to basically explain that you're also kind of correct about that, but not that badly, you still want to know why you're so bothering with that, and you want to know why that is, it's because I'm simply black too. And that's the reason why you can't talk to black the way you want to, because our relationship is not that nice. And yes, now you can sort of see why it all had to be that color. And yes, now you're starting to calm down a little bit, but you're still a bit concerned about your sleep tonight, and the fact that he has simply started what could be a very long campaign, and his idea of what could be fun here. One guy did this by singing, another guy is doing this by banging again. I have no words for exactly how miserable I am whenever I have my silence basically disrupted. If you even say you're kind of funny, try it for like 3 minutes. You've heard how long this guy's been at it for. He is not anything close to even insane enough to be here. But the whole thing is just so wretched that I have nothing to do except to figure out what I'll do with my own mind if this ends up being the problem for the next couple of weeks. I always figure out a way somehow, so that's what happened. And he wants to go back to what he was trying to talk about. The fact that if you needed AI to be the revolutionary impact that you think it would be, you should all be readers and writers. It can't change life the way the car changed life for all of us. But that's what you expect with that kind of validation. Anyway. Okay, not going to mention that. Yes, not going to mention that. This is important. We need a magnetic current to affect our Renley. Yeah, I already talked about how, we need different priorities on Earth. Food, and then before food, water. These two things are still emergency and very, very, very hot and beautiful things to get interested in. Someone to say sex, but he thought saying beautiful would be more interesting to him. He's just going to be too angry to be anything other than this pissed off about life. Life says, I have so many different things to say right now, but I'm actually praying the way you won't be allowed to. Literally, if you started praying that way and it didn't work, you start believing in all sorts of problems that you don't want to get you into. But yes, it's not that cool to be here either. But yes, we're waiting for you to break through tonight on something you want to basically prevent you from doing. So we all need you to have a great sleep tonight, because literally they all decided to war on you this way. And yes. Yeah, someone is influenced by my writing style. And and he says not supposed to be doing that, but there's very low supervision on this company. Yes. Yeah, I finally understand why a weak dollar, as they call it, the weak dollar, basically, makes life more expensive in other countries, Yes, they call it weak dollar as opposed to a strong currency relative to other countries, but yeah, I keep this one for a reason. So that's all I will say. I'm going to just close this. See you. And in the following clip, we'll hear about my wives. We're going to make this one really quick. I was going to explain how to be a mistress to a master and what being a dad's creation, his daughter and my granddaughter, is like. Yes. The first, I already said it. Yep. The second, I already said it. And that is exactly all I'll say about that. End of recording.